overall thoughts on the roster?
So overall, not too many surprises. I found myself quite emotional this morning. I don't know about you guys. We're going to spend the next month talking about outcomes and qualification pathways and performances on the field, but none of that mattered today. The culmination of a footballing journey for 26 individuals who've made it to the World Cup to represent this country. And so many of them have had, been linked by so difficult times that they never even imagined they'd ever get to this stage, right? So we were all blessed and fortunate to cover, all of these qualification process games in this process to get to this stage. This is what it was all about. And for me, that's my overall take from today, was just to see what it meant to these players, even players like Kamal Miller, Alistair Johnston, that quite frankly, we all knew were shoo-ins, but never took it for granted this moment, never took that moment for granted.
It feels like a long time ago, right? That Jamaica game that they secured qualification, and the feeling we all felt that day, the team completing that process. And today was another one of those moments, I think, where, like KJ said, you just think back on some of the stories of these players, whether it's some of the older players who haven't had opportunities in this country, haven't had a lot of success with this national team, and now get to represent the team at the World Cup, to some of the younger ones who, have come from very humble beginnings in their careers in a lot of cases, whether it's been college, whether it's been semi-professional football, whatever the case may be, to now playing, representing their country at a World Cup is a pretty special thing. So, yeah, it was a very nice moment this morning to hear from some of those players, to see the excitement on their faces. Special thing they're going to get to do over these next few weeks.
He becomes the number 2 with Max Crepeau out with the broken leg. Do you think, KJ, that Dane will see any minutes in Qatar?
Well, I think most Canadians would certainly hope not. And that's no disrespect to Dane Sinclair. He's an outstanding young player. And I think he will play big minutes for Canada going forward in Gold Cups and qualifiers to come, and Nations League potentially. But look, for any scenario to break down here means an injury to either the number 1 or a suspension or something. That's the only way you're keeping Milan Boyan off the pitch for the games in Qatar. So, look, do I think that he would be fine if he gets the opportunity? I do think he would be fine, but it's a massive step down, no doubt about it. It's not Maxime Crepeau has played at the Gold Cup. He's played considerable minutes. Where I think if we were sitting here having this conversation right now, that if Milan Boyan had any kind of issues in the World Cup, be it injury or suspension, would have no problem with Max Crepeau. There is a level down, a significant level down, just because of experience with Dane. Yeah. But he is a very talented goalkeeper. I'm delighted he's got his opportunity, and I think mentally he's ready for this next task. Like we talked on Friday's broadcast, that every game he goes in, he has to now be prepared to play, which previously wouldn't have been the case if he was a third stringer.
Let's take a look at Alistair Johnston, another name who became a household name during these qualifiers, and now here he is going to the World Cup. I'm curious, a lot of these players too, as much as they love playing in Canada, he plays for CF Montreal Major League Soccer. It's still a dream to play in Europe. Do you think Alistair Johnston could use the World Cup to really showcase his stuff and make that pivot?
Yeah, I do. He's going to get a wonderful opportunity. And I think, look, the caliber of players he's going up against, when you look at the left-hand side of Belgium and Croatia and Morocco even as well, I don't think it's going to, be really damaging for his career if he has a tough time against some of these players. But certainly if he thrives in those scenarios, when you're going against up against a player like Eden Hazard, people are going to take notice. So I think people are starting to take notice of Alistair Johnston regardless. I think he's an excellent young defender and will be a cornerstone of this team for the next decade, and potentially even a future captain of this team. But certainly you can accelerate that process at a tournament like this, put yourself in that shop window when you're going up against world-class forwards who are running at you, testing you in combination and all of these different things. And if you're able to survive that, people will notice. And Alistair Johnston has done it at every step. We saw it. I remember in particular in Hamilton, there was a one-on-one moment with Christian Pulisic, and Johnston won the challenge, defended it brilliantly. I celebrated that like a goal. Like it was such a good moment to see that young player go up against a top-class opponent and just shut him down like that. And yeah, he's been another incredible story for this team, and someone that you would never bet against, even against the types of players he's going to face at the World Cup.
All right, Joel Waterman, guys, I'm already seeing a lot of people chanting CPL in our comments section. Paul C's writing in, Forge FC, who are we? There are a lot of people here who are Canadian Premier League fans, and they are really proud to see Joel Waterman make this. But there are also people asking about, who's the biggest surprise in making the squad? For me, I'll say Joel Waterman, but I don't know where you rank him there as far as surprises, KJ.
Yeah, undoubtedly, it's the biggest surprise because of the pathway that he's taken, right? But again, this is a credit, first of all, to the system that is in place with the Canadian Premier League that gave a player an opportunity. It's a credit to everybody around Joel, his family, but in particularly for him. You know, he went to the Canadian Premier League. He was brave. He challenged himself in different positions. And this is the other thing for me. He's not a safe defender. He puts himself in situations where, yes, he can fail, and he's okay with that. Mentally, he's very, very tough and very, very strong. Again, he's just another good guy. And that's really, really important within this squad. And then obviously playing regularly for CF Montreal and playing well on a top-class team is important, right? So whether he was number 26 and only got in today for Daniil Henry or not, he made sure that he was on the radar of John Herdman. So if an injury came up straight away, John Herdman is absolutely crushed, and we all are for Daniil Henry. But right away, it's like, well, okay, I've got Joel Waterman. By the way, he's played way more minutes this year than Daniil Henry for a top-class team in Major League Soccer, making a big difference, and combinations with Johnston there on the right-hand side and Miller on the left. So, look, I don't think we'll see many minutes for him, but if he needs to step in and play 15, 10 minutes here or whatever, more importantly, he's a great squad player. And this is the thing, when you construct your World Cup roster, 16, 17, 18 players are going to play. What are the 8 or 9 guys going to do? They're like pawns on a chessboard. They protect everybody else. They play the position, stay in the game, just take care of everything. Don't cause trouble. Don't go knock on the manager's door and say, why I'm not playing. You've got to be good soldiers, and that's exactly what you've got with Joel Waterman. It's a fantastic Canadian soccer success story, Ollie.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that as well. Isn't it nice that we can finally say about a Canadian men's national team player and a World Cup player that the system has worked for them, you know, and has given them opportunities and allowed them to get to this level? We've told so many stories over the years of players where the system hasn't been there for them. They've had to go abroad. They've had to scrap and claw and fight just to have a professional career. And now we can actually look at a player and say he benefited from college soccer, from semi-professional soccer, from the CPL, and now going to MLS. Like, we're finally putting things in place in this country where players like Joel Waterman are being discovered and getting opportunities, and now going to a World Cup is an incredible way to cap it off.
Let's go to the middle of the field, gentlemen, in the El Capitano and Atiba Hutchinson. So it's great to see him just recently back with Besiktas, because prior to that, we hadn't seen him play since June. It was always a belief that he was working hard to get back and that he would be on the team despite the lack of playing time. But I guess my question, Ollie, is because of that lack of playing time, are you starting him in that game against Belgium?
I would personally love to. We're going to have to wait and see, right? And we'll see against Japan what kind of role he has there. But I just think this is one of the greatest players in the history of the program. This is a top-class midfield player, still incredibly at 39 years old. I think if he can go 60 minutes for you, you absolutely put him in the starting lineup because of what he can give you. And this is going to be the moment where I don't get emotional over a lot, but when I see Atiba Hutchinson lining up in a World Cup match for the national anthem, I'm not sure what's going to happen, because this is going to be really special to see someone who, you know, is given what he's given to the national team and had almost nothing in return over the years. To see him in Qatar playing a World Cup game is going to be something really special.
You're such an emotional guy, Ollie. Come on. I see it all the time.
Can I just read? EM has written, Atiba was onside. I'm assuming he's talking about the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
What was that, 2007, where he scored the goal? See, it runs deep. First of all, that just goes to show how long Atiba's been representing this country. So, yes, I can understand your emotions, Ollie, but there are also people who are just not letting it go. Atiba, KJ, was onside.
Yeah, of course he was onside. There's so many. We've all got so many Atiba stories because we've all been blessed to be involved in this game for so long, right? So, you know, I always go back to, I think I did an interview with him in Vancouver in 2017, and I'm a big World Cup nut, as you know, I'm a big World Cup historian. And I remember telling him then, like, if you make it to the 2022 World Cup and you play on the pitch, you'll be the second oldest player to ever play in a World Cup behind Roger Miller. And he looks at me and he just laughed, right? Because it's just like, at that point, no one thought Canada was going. No one thought Atiba Hutchinson would still be playing in 2022. And yet both those tracks have gone side by side. It's not just Canada have made it to the World Cup. It's that Atiba Hutchinson has also made it to the World Cup. And of course, they come intertwined occasionally. But the fact that that's both happened is fantastic, because Atiba, I think many people would have said, okay, if Canada was somehow to do this, would play a bit of a role, but would he be ready to play at 39 again to play in this? And as he said to me in one of his interviews, I said to him, you know, what would it mean to you? He said it would complete my football journey. And here he goes. He's about to complete his football journey and make history. So I'm with Ollie. If he can play that game, there's scenarios you have to play in your head where after 55 minutes, if they're down a goal, you throw on someone like Osorio or Kone to chase it anyway. If you're still in the game at 0-0 or you're somehow winning it, you put Piet on and you try and find a way to. So there's different scenarios that you can see. I'd love to see him start, but thinking Wheels, if he's going to start 3 games, I think is a bit too much to ask because he's played 1 game since June.
They play at noon. I haven't seen if he's in the 11 for Besiktas today, but probably not. That's the thing at 39, having played 70 minutes against a third-tier Turkish side. I just don't think he's ready to step in and play at that level right now. I will say this, there is no Canadian player that the Canadian soccer community, people that have played, coached, been administrators within the system, are cheering for more than Atiba Hutchinson. And if he does play in all 3 games, he will be the Canadian men's national team first centurion, first player to reach 100 caps, which would be an amazing accomplishment. And doing that at a FIFA World Cup. And I don't think he will start, but I do think that that's realistic that he will play in all 3 games.
Stefan Eustaquio.
Eustaquio now.
He is getting so much love, and rightfully so, because as much as we love Atiba, I mean, his heir apparent in that midfield, someone who is the maestro on the pitch, Eustaquio, he's the conductor. He is the guy who helps on offense and helps on defense. He is absolutely everywhere. And I know, KJ, at some point we were looking at his minutes even during qualifying, and we thought, is Herdman ever going to give this guy a break? But why would you when he continues to do the things that he did?
He was the greatest Canadian player in the men's national team qualifiers. I know that Laren, got the goal scoring record and Davies scored the goals. Davies is the star. He was the best player for Canada in the World Cup qualifiers when Canada were the best team in the region. So arguably for me, the best player in all of CONCACAF during the World Cup qualifiers. He's that good. And I said it to him on the pitch. I'll repeat it again. We've waited for years in this country to produce a player like that. There's different profiles of different players that we have. And in Canada, bless us, we should never forget the 1986 team and so many other greats that have come along. This is a day to celebrate for everybody. But creating a player like Stefan Eustaquio, who's technically as quality, as brilliant as he is, who can finish as well, but can play and has got the brains as a 6, has the vision of an 8, and can also pass like a 10. He's got everything you need. And there's lots of debates about what players are going to be doing in Qatar. If this guy's not playing 90 plus 90 plus 90, Ollie, Canada's in trouble.
Yeah, no question about it. I think, look, I've always kind of sided when we've been asked before who's the most important player to Canada in this team. And obviously the obvious answer is Alphonso Davies. But I think when you think about, there are other players in the attack, if Alphonso's not on it on a particular day, who can step up and produce and deliver those moments. And Jonathan David and Tajon Buchanan, Kyle Laren and so on. If Eustaquio's not on it in midfield for Canada, then it's curtains, right? Like you're not going to win any games without this guy being absolutely brilliant in the center of the park at this tournament. So a huge player and an absolutely superb one.
To think of this as a player that did his ACL career, you weren't sure which direction it was going to go in Mexico. He didn't pick up his first cap until 2019. USA 4, Canada 1. Like he experienced that legendary 2-0 Canada win at BMO Field over the US from the bench. Now it's like, think about that, like how the team has continued to grow and evolve and is even a better version now. And this guy plays a huge role in it all and keeping this all together.
Wheels, I was in Orlando praying he went on the pitch. I was like, please catch him now.
Cap time.
Put him on the field.
No kidding.
All right, well, let's get to the man of the hour as well here in that midfield, because this is somebody who really made a name for himself at the pro level this season. And then when he made his Canada debut, this was a guy who sometimes looked young. And then, my goodness, did he ever turn heads in that September window against Qatar, and then in particular Uruguay, because that's world number 13. And he didn't even flinch. He looked really good. Here he is scoring the goal against Bahrain. That was just a couple days ago. Wheels, what do you make of what Kone has been able to do just to break out and have the spotlight on him?
Well, John Herdman noticed Ismail Kone for the first time watching One Soccer and the Scotiabank CONCACAF Champions League back in February, like when he scored against Santos Laguna. Like this was like real. Like this was the first time that he announced his arrival. Then the first Canada camp he went into was the final camp during qualifying. So it's been a meteoric rise. Look, he is physical and technical attributes that few players on this Canadian side has. I think he's just about ready to be unleashed. I understand this whole, is he ready or not? If Canada really is going to be fearless, they need to play him because he could be a difference maker in the team. I understand the inexperience, but screw it. That's been kind of part of the Canadian story the entire way through. I think he has to play.
If you're going to be fearless at this tournament, it means gambling, right? And it might go wrong. But we need Canada are going to need to do that if they're going to upset the teams they're facing.
Yeah. Where would you play him though? That's the key. Is like if you think about where is he going to play, right? That's the only thing I would say. I know exactly what you're saying, but we know that call it whatever you want, 3-4-3, 5-3-2, 5-2-3, whatever you want. But are you going to play him as a 2 next to Eustaquio? Because I think that's an incredibly bold and brave decision, and you're probably only going to do that if you're chasing the game.
It surprised me a little bit that he kind of played underneath the number 9 against Bahrain. And potentially that could be an area if you're going to have to be forced to take off one of those attacking players based on who you're playing in this World Cup. Perhaps that's a role that suits him.
All right. Tajon Buchanan, the speedster who himself had his start of season delayed because of an injury, but it's okay because he played in that September window, looked good, has continued to look good as well for Club Bruges. How important do you think Canada's success, KJ, will be at the World Cup based on his performance?
Well, I think it could go toe to toe and hand in hand. To be frank, again, he's a remarkable talent, and we have to remember that the start of this qualification process, he was with the Olympic team. He wasn't ready to. People didn't think he was ready, and he's just shown that he can be ready. And without Davies and David, really in that Gold Cup, it became his team. The attacking identity was built around Tajon Buchanan. And he's fearless. And for a shy guy off the pitch, sometimes he comes alive on it. And as I said earlier, if you're Dalic of Croatia or Roberto Martinez of Belgium, you're understanding that this guy he finds a way to get in games. And in the transition game, he can be ruthless. So if you're a back 4 or a back 3, if you're Croatia or Belgium, you're on your toes the moment you get to the ball, right? So naturally, you can suddenly see them dropping deeper with creating space for other players to play involved in it as well. It's not always what he does on the ball. It's giving him the ability to make those runs, stretch the pitch, which Canada often doesn't do because a lot of the players come to the ball and create that moment of magic that may set up that space for Davies and others to be able to do the damage. So, look, it's so exciting for Canada to have a player like that, and his stock is only going to rise at this World Cup.
He's looked so comfortable in the Champions League. Sorry, Ollie, coming back from injury. The biggest question, and you can take it away, where do you play him? Like in the Champions League, he played at that right wing back position. I have a feeling that he's more suited in this Canada side to play in the attacking 3.
Kadam Kane, apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I would love to have Jonathan David for Everton. I feel like there's going to be a good little battle.
Yeah, of course you would.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, mate. Good luck with that.
Well, there's a lot of rumor. I mean, I don't know, Ollie. This is big. And for a lot of the players, too, and they've said it, Jonathan Osorio was very open about using the World Cup as a chance, not just to obviously experience the World Cup and represent his country, but they want European eyeballs on them, too. I think they're already on Jonathan David, Ollie. But we've speculated for quite some time on our show, One Soccer Today, like what would be the next best move for him?
Oh, it's going to be higher than Everton. Sorry to any Everton fans out there, but I think that ship has sailed. The only reason he's going to leave Lille at this point, I think, is for a top club in Europe. It doesn't have to be Real Madrid's, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, but certainly the next tier down from that. I don't think there's any sense in moving on from Lille unless that's the kind of offer you're getting. And the season he's putting together in Ligue 1 right now, one of the top scorers, right up there with Neymar and Mbappe. That interest is going to come for him, I think, regardless really of this World Cup. But certainly this is one way to accelerate it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that. No disrespect to Everton, a wonderful club, but I think you can figure out your manager before you figure out who's going to play up front for you. That's all I would say about them. Look, Jonathan David is a really unique, special talent that Canada are very fortunate to have, and I'm so happy to see that he stayed with Lille because I think he's got better this season. First, two things from me. One, we're seeing a lot of these goals we're showing here. His left foot has improved unbelievably over the last year. He's finishing on the left side. So when he goes and posts up one-on-one with the defender now, they know that they can't push him simply to that one side. His left foot has become such a dynamic force of what he can do. His finishing ability, his one-touch finishing is off the charts. The other thing, too, is that this is a player that will benefit from the World Cup playing now. His best months in his career are August and September and October. He sometimes gets a little bit tired. He's certainly done that with the European season the last couple of seasons. He is in peak form right now. So he starts the World Cup in the best form of his life. And traditionally, many players that excel at the World Cup come into that form. They don't just suddenly switch it on and switch it off. They come into a World Cup because they're playing so well. And he is playing really well at this moment.
And KJ, it's such an advantage, him not playing Champions League football this time around. Like some of these players have been playing weekend, midweek for the past 2 months. He's just been playing once a week. It's actually put him in a really good spot heading into this World Cup.
Gentlemen, it is the star. I mean, we have a lot of great players on this team. It's not to take away, but the most recognizable face, of course, is Alphonso Davies. He's feeling good. We know we were all holding our breath. We're still probably a wee bit nervous after he pulled up in his last match with Bayern, clutching his hamstring. But who could forget, this goal against Panama? And even though he missed some time with injury and COVID during the qualifiers, every time he was on the pitch, he absolutely wowed. And you said it earlier, KJ, Atiba is a reason why we're also not talking about Alphonso Davies as a left back, but he just looks so good up the pitch as a forward for this Canadian team. It's got to be something special, KJ, where everything Canada has done so far, first time in 36 years, it's great. But to know you're also going to the World Cup with a legitimate superstar who has won things, his trophy case is already stacked. What kind of confidence does that give you?
Well, it gives us tremendous confidence because, there's been a lot of discussion lately about, Bayern Munich and the connections to Alphonso Davies and all, with his injury concerns. What we should say is that what Bayern Munich have done for this player is he gets a master's degree every single week in terms of football, high level football commitment to winning, and that's the great thing about being around Joshua Kimmich and so many stars. I'm not going to go on and name the whole squad, but they are absolutely relentless in the ability to win every game and know how to win it. And so that's what Fonzie's built like. He was already like that anyway, but he comes into the World Cup with really commitment to winning every single time he's going out there. He will look at Belgium and he will look at Croatia very differently than other people will look at Belgium and Croatia because he knows he's better than some of those players and he knows he's beat them before. And so he will go out there with that mentality to think, yes, they can win. They can win these games. And that mentality then becomes very contagious. So I do think, look, we're going to get into this a lot before. I think World Cups are genuinely based on players. A lot of the world game is based on managers, club game, a manager, what can he do? The World Cup is based on players. Players are the stars of the World Cup. The managers and coaches are not. If you talk about it from a snub, you talk it from a negative. And look, it's a positive that he got on the pitch. It's a positive that he got his opportunity. It was his first cap. It was his first moment that he'd ever even got a chance to play for Canada. So to get a chance to play in a game like that when a lot of European players weren't available, he'll never forget that moment. You know what I mean? But this was never going to be a time for him to play in this squad. I don't think ultimately it's great that he's had an opportunity. He's come through the CPL. He's come through an amazing journey himself. Became a champion. But no, this is not a snub at all for him. It's just a great opportunity that he got to play for Canada and ultimately get close to that roster. The other thing we should talk about is what John just said. And I think it's so important that people like John continue to champion the Canadian Premier League. There's a lot of unfortunate negativity in this country when it comes to this sport around about where money is going at the moment. And the people who are creating that league are sometimes are on the dartboard of people. And it's incorrect. Ultimately, if this sport is going to succeed in this country, we have to be behind the Canadian Premier League. And that only links to what's next for the women. And the women are going to get theirs and they deserve it tomorrow. In fact, they needed it yesterday. And that will come. But the people who are going to be behind that are the same people who have been behind the Canadian Premier League before. As John called them, pioneers, people who are brave, people who didn't care about losing money, people who put their money forward and did things that other people haven't done for years. people who decided that it was time for action, people not talking, people doing. And that's why Joel Wortman's going to a World Cup. This is why we have our Canadian Premier League. This is why we have One Soccer, who are brilliant at showing the games. And this is why we're starting to become a football country in this country. This is the culture which is we create. This is what you need. This is what we need in 2026. We need players to come through this pathway. It cannot just simply be down to a league based in the United States where three teams who do very well get an opportunity to play in it. It has to be more than that. And this is just the start of it. And long may that continue.
Hope you're as excited as we are. Join us on November 17th to watch them one last time before it all kicks off for real on November 23rd. That's KJ, that's Wheels, that's Ollie.
Oh, Canada, oh, baby. Let's go. Oh, look at this. Good name to the squad.
2070
that was
left.
Trillo.
That is sneaky. That was
that
a
headband.
sneaky pose.
Brett Michaels-esque. Look at that.
Look at the size of that logo.
That is a massive. What is that? Vaughn, Missouri? What is that?
Yeah, that was Vaughan Lightning, baby. Vaughan Lightning in Maple, Ontario. And do not diss the headband. Who's that?
Oh, look at this guy. Trophies only.
Bigger than that.
That's it. Gonna bring the mushroom cut back.
So cute.
No. That's the bowl cut. Your mom just put the bowl on your head and like just went around.
What you didn't see was the rat tail in behind Andy.
Oh, a little Roberto Baggio. I see that. Gentlemen, Armin, that was sneaky of you putting those up. Guys, always a pleasure. Let's keep talking the footy here on One Soccer. We'll see you later.